California has the strictest food labeling laws in the country, yet bottled water brands sold here are not required to disclose their source, publish their test results, or even tell consumers if the product is filtered tap water. I cross-referenced 6 of the most popular brands sold across the state against Consumer Reports lab testing, FDA records, EWG contamination data, and independent arsenic and PFAS studies. Only 3 came back clean by every reasonable metric. The other 3 are carrying arsenic, nanoplastics, or forever chemicals. We're counting all 6 down from worst to best, and number 6 starts with a spring water label that hides more than it reveals. In the 6th place, Crystal Geyser Alpine Spring Water sets a cautionary baseline for California bottled water. Despite the label's promise of natural alpine spring water, independent testing at the Olancha, California facility found 3.8 parts per billion arsenic, below the federal maximum of 10 ppb, but still significant for a product marketed as pure. Chronic exposure to arsenic, even at low levels, is linked to increased risk of cardiovascular disease and reduced IQ in children. Crystal Geyser's label does not disclose the specific source or batch, leaving California shoppers unable to verify whether their bottle matches the tested lot. Public records show no available PFAS testing data for this brand, and the Environmental Working Group assigns Crystal Geyser its lowest transparency grade, citing a lack of source detail, treatment description, and consumer contact information. For a spring water brand, the absence of full contaminant disclosure and the presence of measurable arsenic combine to make Crystal Geyser the least clean option in this investigation. In the 5th place, Aquafina presents a striking example of premium branding layered over municipal tap water. Marketed as purified, Aquafina is sourced from public water supplies and treated by reverse osmosis, yet the brand's public disclosures stop short of revealing the full picture. The 2025 California Water Quality Report lists chlorate at 22 parts per billion, bromate at 6 parts per billion, and total trihalomethanes at 58 micrograms per liter, each below federal limits, but all traceable to chemical byproducts of water disinfection. Trace uranium has also been reported in some batches, though not at levels that trigger regulatory concern. What sets Aquafina apart is the company's proprietary approach to water quality data. PepsiCo classifies its detailed testing results as confidential business information, offering only compliance summaries to the public. This proprietary shield leaves California consumers unable to independently verify contaminant levels, a stark contrast to the mandatory, transparent reporting required for municipal tap water under the EPA. For a product that commands shelf space in nearly every major grocery chain, the combination of secondary contaminant traces and limited data access raises persistent questions about what shoppers are really paying for. In the 4th place, Dasani brings a different risk profile to California shoppers, one shaped less by chemical contamination and more by the bottle itself. Marketed as purified and remineralized municipal water, Dasani's laboratory record shows no detectable PFAS in recent FDA and state-level testing, sidestepping the chemical alarms that shadow other brands. But the real concern with Dasani emerges when the bottle is exposed to heat, a common scenario in the California climate. A 2024 Columbia University study found that storing PET bottles like Dasani at 45 degrees Celsius, typical for a car trunk on a summer day, tripled the release of nanoplastic particles into the water. The average bottle tested contained over 240,000 nanoplastics per liter at room temperature, but this surged past 700,000 particles when heat stressed. Nearly 90% of these fragments measured under 100 nanometers, small enough to cross into human cells. While Dasani's water chemistry may appear clean on paper, the physical reality is that the bottle itself becomes the contaminant under California's heat. A 2022 class action lawsuit over microplastics was dismissed, but the scientific evidence remains. In a state where temperature and sunlight are constants, the health risk shifts from what's in the water to what the packaging releases. For consumers seeking purity, the bottle's role in particle exposure cannot be overlooked. In the 3rd place, Starkey Spring Water stands as the most legally and scientifically fraught bottled water sold at premium retailers in California. Independent testing published by Consumer Reports in 2020 documented arsenic concentrations averaging 9.9 parts per billion, just a hair below the federal maximum of 10 parts per billion. and nearly triple the level found in most municipal tap water. The health implications are not theoretical. Chronic exposure at or near this threshold is associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease, several cancers, and measurable reductions in children's IQ scores. Starkey's history of regulatory scrutiny is equally troubling. In 2016, a batch bottled for the Florida market tested at 11.7 parts per billion arsenic, prompting a limited recall. Since 2022, bottles sold in California have carried a Proposition 65 warning label, signaling the presence of a chemical known to cause cancer or reproductive harm under state law. This is not a technicality. Proposition 65 enforcement actions typically follow only after documented violations or legal settlements. For a brand that markets itself as a pure Rocky Mountain spring, the presence of near-limit arsenic and a mandatory health warning highlight the stark disconnect between image and reality. Starkey's case raises the stakes for consumers. Even at the highest price point, a bottle can carry legal warnings and contamination risks that would trigger immediate public notice if found in any California tap. As the countdown advances to the cleanest brands, Starkey marks the peak of documented risk and regulatory intervention in this investigation. In the second place, Fiji Water delivers a chemistry profile that stands out for its low contaminant readings, but the story does not end at the laboratory bench. Based on Environmental Working Group batch tests, Fiji's arsenic levels consistently register at or below 0.5 parts per billion, far beneath the federal maximum of 10 parts per billion, and well under the thresholds linked to cardiovascular disease and neurodevelopmental harm in children. Independent screens for PFAS compounds have not detected any of the regulated chemicals, and the artesian source is clearly stated on the label, a detail missing from many competitors. Yet, the brand's reputation for purity is now shadowed by a 2024 lawsuit filed in Los Angeles Superior Court, alleging that Fiji Water's environmental marketing claims, especially regarding carbon footprint and sustainable sourcing, do not match its actual practices. This legal action accuses the company of greenwashing, raising questions about whether the image of pristine, untouched water aligns with the full reality of production and distribution. For California shoppers weighing both health and ethical considerations, the result is a paradox. Fiji Water's contaminant record is among the cleanest available, but its corporate transparency and marketing credibility are under legal scrutiny. The combination of excellent water chemistry and unresolved legal challenges keeps Fiji Water just short of the top spot, illustrating that purity on paper is only part of the equation for California's most discerning bottled water consumers. And finally, in first place, Evian stands alone as the cleanest bottled water option available to California shoppers, at least by the numbers. Independent laboratory analysis, including Consumer Reports' 2023 testing, found arsenic at just 0.2 parts per billion, a figure so low it sits well beneath both federal and California health benchmarks. Lead was measured below 0.3 parts per billion, and multiple rounds of FDA and state-level testing report non-detectable PFAS, placing Evian at the top of the list for chemical purity. What further sets Evian apart is its approach to transparency. The label and company website both disclose the precise source, Evian-les-Bains, a protected alpine catchment at over 2,000 feet in the French Alps, along with detailed mineral content and pH. This level of openness is rare in a market where most brands shield source and batch data behind proprietary claims. Yet, even the cleanest chemistry comes with caveats. Like nearly all bottled water packaged in PET, Evian is not immune to nanoplastic contamination. Recent studies, including 2024 research from Columbia University, have shown that even premium brands can contain hundreds of thousands of nanoplastic fragments per liter, most of which are shed from the bottle itself, especially when exposed to heat, as is common in California's climate. While the company's own disclosures and third-party tests show no regulatory violations, the risk of invisible plastic exposure remains an open question for every PET bottled product. There is also the environmental cost. Evian's journey from the French Alps to California shelves leaves a measurable carbon footprint. The Carbon Trust has documented the freight emissions associated with transatlantic shipping, making Evian one of the most resource-intensive bottled waters sold in the state. For shoppers weighing both purity and environmental impact, this trade-off is clear. Evian delivers the cleanest water by current contaminant standards and transparency practices, but the bottle and its global supply chain still carry unavoidable risks. In a marketplace where regulatory loopholes and marketing claims often blur the line between image and reality, Evian's record offers the most reliable option, while reminding consumers that no bottled water is entirely free from modern concerns. Across all 6 brands, one pattern stands out. California shoppers face a transparency gap. Premium labels promise purity, but independent testing and disclosure records reveal inconsistent safety and sometimes real risk. Until bottled water meets the same disclosure standards as tap, consumers are left making decisions with incomplete information.